Discover 9 spine-chilling true horror stories from Oregon, Sinister Secrets Revealed. Claire's breath hitched as she drove into Pine Ridge, a quaint town nestled among towering firs that clawed at the turbulent skies. Every mile felt like she was traveling deeper into the jaws of something sinister. As her children's giggles echoed behind her, Claire couldn't shake the knot tightening in her stomach. They were running from a past tangled in pain and mystery, but she feared they were merely running towards something worse. Despite its cheery facade, Pine Ridge clung to her spirit like moss on a tree. The Johnsons, the couple across the street who practically radiated charm, embraced Claire and her kids with wide smiles and warm welcomes. But the deeper she delved into the town's charms, the more the shadows seemed to twitch behind those well-meaning grins. Whispers rustled through the leaves, and something cold slithered through the twilight air. Just the wind, a police officer laughed dismissively when Claire approached him. But she knew those whispers did not belong to the trees. Max had woken, eyes wide with fear, speaking of a man in the mirror. Little Lily, clutching her beloved Teddy, filled pages with drawings of faceless figures in the shadows, their grins sharp as knives. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. As night unfurled its inky blanket over the town, Claire's home transformed. Shadows pooled in corners, coiling with an unsettling life of their own. The soft hum of the Johnsons' laughter through the walls began to twist into maddening echoes. Claire could feel invisible eyes piercing from the woods, and her heart raced each time the wind howled, almost mimicking her children's cries from the night terrors. Desperation fluttered in Claire's chest as she stumbled upon police reports hidden within town archives, flaring a bright red alarm inside her mind. Names, faces, lingering disappearances all woven together like an ugly tapestry that decorated the town. And the Johnsons, with their perfect lawn and rehearsed smiles, were entangled in that history. Her flashlight flickered ominously against the bushes outside, shadows stretched and warped as the tales of lost souls hung heavily. Then came the night shadows cast by a figure standing in the yard, a sickening turn of realization washing over her. They were dressed like the townsfolk, familiar and yet unsettling. Was it the Johnsons calling her? "Claire, we're here to help you," they called from the swirling darkness, those smiles now looking more like wolves in sheep's clothing. Panic surged through her veins, and she pulled her children close, breaths caught in fearful gasps. What did help mean? Were they on the brink of salvation, or had she unwittingly walked into a trap? As the wind screeched through the trees, Claire felt the line between protector and predator blur. The chill of uncertainty wouldn't let go, and as the pounding at the door echoed, another question loomed larger than the darkness outside: who could she trust? Claire held her breath. The pounding at the door echoed louder, like a heartbeat obsessed with chaos. Mommy Lily whimpered, her tiny fingers clutching Claire's arm with a grip that felt like ice. Max cowered behind them, his eyes darting around the room, searching for safety that felt increasingly elusive. "Sure, it's okay," Claire whispered, though every fiber of her being screamed otherwise. She edged toward the door, her heart racing as dread curled tighter. She could almost hear the whispered invitations, the Johnsons' voices stain the night air with something unholy. They had not just come to help, they had come to claim. "What do you want?" she called, her voice wavering, half a challenge and half a plea. The reply came in a low, comforting tone, unsettlingly similar to the lullabies she sang to her children. "We just want to keep you safe, Claire, safe from the night." The familiar timbre wrapped around her like a cocoon of dread. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging them into darkness for an instant before roaring back to life. In that blink, the figure at the window had shifted. Claire caught a glimpse of the Johnsons' warm smiles, but in the briefest moment, their faces warped into grotesque masks, features melting like wax under too much light. She stumbled back, dread pooling in her gut. "No, Get away from the window. She shouted at Max and Lily, shoving them toward the back of the house. Her instinct for survival had kicked in, primal and fiercely protective. She locked eyes with them. We need to go. Heart racing, she grabbed a large kitchen knife from the drawer, its cold steel reassuring against her clammy palm. A noise came from the front of the house, a thud, heavy like a weight dropped in dread. The shadows seemed to lean closer, eager, hungry, as if the very fabric of night had started to warp. Mommy Max's voice broke through the panic. Stay together. She commanded, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. Moments dragged, stretched thin by fear as she listened to the rustling whispers weave through the air. They weren't alone. The house felt alive, the walls pulsing like a heartbeat, echoing the secrets of those who had vanished before. As she reached the back door, she turned back one last time. The Johnsons loomed at the window now, framed by the glass like haunting portraits. It's just a trick, Claire. Let us in. They pleaded with an almost hypnotic rhythm, their blinking eyes pleading, but their smiles betraying something ravenous lurking beneath the surface. A moment's decision, run or fight. The kids locked onto her, the trust in their eyes sending a surge of determination through her. She turned the knob and flung the door open, the night air biting into her skin. Go. Run. Claire pushed them outside, hearing the shatter of glass as the Johnsons smashed through into her home. Shadows enveloped her like tendrils, reaching for her, clawing at her sanity. Together they sprinted toward the woods, a dark embrace promising danger, yet offering the only possible escape. But the rustling followed them, and Claire dared to glance back. The Johnsons slipped through the shattered door, their eyes now gleaming, alive with a hunger for something she didn't want to name. They weren't just after her, they wanted her children. Her heart thundered in terror, knowing they were mere moments away from howling pursuit. Trees loomed closer, but it was the darkness behind them that terrified her. Would it swallow them whole? Mommy, I'm scared. Max shouted, panic rising in his voice. Hold on tight. She yelled, adrenaline surging through her veins. They dashed deeper into the forest, but what would be waiting for them in the blackness? Would the woods offer haven, or were they merely stepping into deeper traps waiting patiently for nightfall's dominion? A howl sliced through the air, low and menacing, reverberating off the ancient trees. And Claire knew, they had already hunted once. They would hunt again, but would they outpace it this time? The forest loomed around them, gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal hands. Shadows danced as the moonlight struggled to seep through the dense canopy. Each step felt like a descent deeper into the mouth of hell. The trees whispered in unsettling tones, a language Claire couldn't understand but instinctively feared. Mommy, where are we going? Lily's voice trembled, a haunting echo of innocence lost. Anywhere but here. Claire gasped, her legs burning from exertion. She glanced back, the terrifying realization gripping her heart. They were two close, dark figures trailing them with an agility that defied the bounds of natural movement. The Johnsons were relentless, their laughter a twisted melody that warped through the trees, wrapping around her like shackles, pulling her back. The howling intensified, slicing at the fabric of the night. It wasn't just the Johnsons anymore, the invisible threat of something more primal, more savage stalked within the dark. She could feel it, the air pulsed with an energy that made her skin crawl. Mommy! Max cried, his little voice breaking. I can't run anymore. Claire spun, dropping to her knees, grabbing his shoulders. You have to, Max. You have to for us. Panic washed over her as she scanned the shadows. What if they caught up before they found a safe place? A low growl rippled through the air like thunder. The hairs on the back of her neck prickled as she turned her gaze back to the path ahead. The darkness seemed to swell, thickening like a living creature, hungry and waiting. It wasn't just the Johnsons. There was something else in the dark, watching, its breath heavy and moist. Move! Claire urged, pulling the children up again. They stumbled forward, fear clawing at their heels. Breathless, they ducked beneath low branches, weaving through the maze of trunks. The forest wasn't just silent, it pulsed with an otherworldly absence, where even the crickets dared not chirp. Suddenly, there was a flicker of movement to her left. Claire's heart lurched. She swung her knife at the shadows, missing but feeling the rush of adrenaline course through her. "Stay close," she whispered fiercely, struggling to keep the tremor from her voice. The ground fell away beneath them, and they tumbled down a slope, crashing into a clearing. Claire hit hard, the wind knocked from her lungs as she gasped for air. She looked around, moonbeams flooded the small space, revealing tangled roots and a clustering of rocks. As she pulled the children close, their breathless panting mingling with the rising panic, Claire felt a moment of exhaustion. Her heart hammered not just from fear, but from doubt. What if this was a trap? What if they were right back where the Johnsons wanted them? She threw a wary glance towards the trees, but the shadows had stopped their pursuit at the edge of the clearing. "Mommy, what do we do?" Max's voice quivered. Claire gripped the knife tightly, its steel cold and raw against her palm. "We wait," she breathed. "We need to regain our strength." But as they caught their breath, a chilling sound broke the stillness, laughter, echoing and haunting, bouncing off the trees. It wasn't just the Johnsons anymore, they were toying with them. The shadows were alive, gleeful in anticipation. With an unsettling certainty, Claire understood they weren't just surrounded. They had been led here, drawn into a snare, an altar of dread waiting for a sacrifice. The howls began to swirl around them once more, feeding off the terror saturating the air, and Claire knew this was not just about escape anymore. It was about survival against an evil that feasted on fear itself. But as the moon rode high in the sky, a deep voice emerged from the trees, thick and raspy, calling her name in a sing-song lullaby that sent icy shivers down her spine. "Claire, we just want to help you find peace." And in that moment, beneath the oppressive weight of darkness pressing ever closer, she realized with horror what kind of help did they truly mean. The laughter faded into an unsettling silence, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Claire's heart raced, echoing in her ears as she crouched tightly around Max and Lily. The chill of the earth seeped through her clothes, a constant reminder of the icy fingers curling around her spine. Mommy, Lily's voice was barely above a whisper, trembling like a fragile leaf. "I'm scared." "Me too, honey," Claire admitted, her breath hitching as she kept her eyes locked on the shadows beyond the clearing. She could almost feel them watching, their hunger palpable. They were baiting her, and she knew all too well how predators operated. Wait for the moment of weakness to strike. The air felt thick, tainted with malice, and Claire swallowed hard, fighting to remain calm for her children. "Just be quiet. Don't move," she instructed, her voice low and shaky. Suddenly, a rustling sound swept through the underbrush, followed by the soft scuttling of what seemed to be small claws. Claire's grip tightened around the knife. The laughter had ceased, replaced by the distant growling and an unsettling shuffling that unnerved her more than any human presence. "Stay hidden," she urged, leaning closer to the kids, sensing her own rising panic. The obscuring darkness swirled like a living thing. Shadows danced and twisted just beyond the edge of the clearing, taunting her with glimpses of what could be lurking there. Claire's breath quickened. She had to think. They needed to move, but where? Then, out of the shadows, a figure stepped forward. It was one of the Johnsons, his face warped and devoid of humanity, grinning in the moonlight. "Are you scared, Claire?" We've been waiting. Before she could react, another figure emerged beside him. And then another. It was an unholy gathering, a perverse reunion of malevolence. They encircled the clearing, closing ranks like wolves around their prey. Claire felt a raw panic claw at her insides. "Why?" Claire shouted, desperation leaking into her voice. "What do you want from us?" The Johnson who had first spoken tilted his head, as if pondering her question with twisted delight. "Your fear, it's a wonderful offering." "Offering?" Claire's heart pounded against her chest, the weight of dread threatening to suffocate her. "You're not human." "Oh, but we are," another Johnson chimed in, voice playful yet laced with menace. "Just a different kind of human." Then they began to chant, a low, haunting melody that reverberated through the trees. Crayed closely, Claire could hear the words. They twisted and turned, a strange invocation that seemed to resonate with the darkness itself. With every note, the air thickened, pulling at her breath. Max's whimper broke Claire from the trance. She looked down at her son, eyes wide with confusion and fear. They couldn't stay here. It was a trap designed to feed on their terror. Run! Claire shouted, her voice breaking the spell as she grabbed the children's hands. Adrenaline surged through her. They sprinted to the edge of the clearing, the chant escalating behind them, urgent and commanding. Branches lashed at them as they plunged back into the forest, dodging the unseen threats that loomed. But this time, the shadows reacted. They surged with feral energy, rushing toward them, an amalgamation of darkness that felt alive. Faster! Claire urged, legs pumping wildly, lungs burning. Hope flared in her heart. If they could just make it back to the road. But at that moment, the forest shifted. The trees loomed closer, their twisted roots nodding like fingers reaching out to ensnare them. Claire's frantic thoughts spiraled. And then she stumbled, leg caught in an exposed root, sending her crashing to the ground. Panic surged through her as she fell, dragging Max and Lily down with her. The sound of footsteps drew near, anticipation wrapping around her like a noose. The Johnsons materialized from the shadows, their eyes glinting with sadistic glee. Don't worry, Claire, it'll all be over soon. Claire shook her head, clawing at the ground, an animal instinct driving her to fight back. Desperation gave her strength. She had one chance. Just as the figures moved closer, the ground split beneath them, a sudden chasm opening into blackness. Run! Claire screamed, managing to pull herself up as the darkness consumed everything around them. But the question echoed loudly in her mind: what had they awakened in the depths of that chasm? With the trees swallowing the last of the moonlight, Claire knew they had to escape. But what if the shadows weren't the only thing they had to fear? What would happen when they reached the edge of the forest? What awaited them there? The chasm threatened to swallow them whole, darkness stretching endlessly beneath. Claire yanked Max and Lily up, adrenaline adding strength to her trembling limbs. They scrambled back, heartbeats pounding in sync with the frantic rustle of leaves around them. Only moments ago, those twisted figures mocked them. Now, they lingered at the cusp of the abyss, curiosity dancing in their grotesquely carved faces. Claire's chest tightened. She forced herself to glance back at the nightmare behind them. The Johnsons, silhouetted against the chasm, began to chant again, their voices weaving through the air like venomous tendrils. The words were strange and melodic, twisting the very essence of the forest into something sinister. With an icy chill, Claire realized they weren't just calling out to her, they were beckoning something from the dark. Mommy! What is happening? Max cried, his small fingers clinging to her arm. Stay close. Claire hissed, scanning their surroundings. The forest pulsed with unease. Shadows writhed like living smoke, as if pressed by an invisible hand. They had to keep moving. With one last glance at the Johnsons, Claire turned and shoved the fear down deep. There was no room for terror now. She pushed forward, pulling her children along. The darkness around them thickened, strands of mist weaving through the trees. It wrapped around Claire's throat, hot and constrictive. Each beam of moonlight that dared pierce the forest felt like a cruel joke, highlighting the impending doom. Mommy! Lily cried again, her voice shaking. I see something. It's okay, it's just. Claire's voice faltered. She blinked hard, forcing her panic back. If Lily had seen something, it was already too late to turn back. Just keep moving. As they deeper into the woods, the ground felt uneven, the roots snaking beneath their feet like the fingers of the damned, waiting to trip them again. The howling wind echoed around them, but unlike before, it carried whispers, voices, familiar and strange, pulled from fragments of memory. Don't go too far, Claire, don't leave us. The hidden call filled her with dread. She stumbled but steadied herself just in time to avoid another root, a knot of earth snapping back at her heel. Can you hear them, Mommy? Max whispered, eyes wide. Claire shook her head, the sound punctured by her fierce breath. No. It's just the wind. But her own voice felt unconvincing, an echo of the doubt creeping into her thoughts. What if it wasn't just the wind? Suddenly, the trees parted ahead, revealing a clearing bathed in dim moonlight. The atmosphere shifted. It felt different, peaceful, welcoming even. Claire hesitated. Should they take the chance? What if it leads us to safety? Max asked. Or a greater danger, Claire replied darkly, her heart pounding. The shadows were close behind, seeping into her resolve like ink in water. She scanned the edges of the clearing, but her breath caught when she saw the figures lurking just beyond the light's touch, dull eyes glinting, mouths pulling into unsettling smiles. With a steely resolve, she grasped the children's hands tighter. We can't stop here. We need to keep going. Before they moved, Claire felt it, the cool breeze stirring. Whispers grew clearer, calling her name. Claire, come play with us, a cry erupted from Lily. Mommy! Make it stop. I don't want to. They broke into a sprint, fleeing the beckoning voices. But as they dashed from the clearing, more shadows emerged, and the forest closed in on them like a trap, branches stretching down as if to snatch them back. Please! Claire screamed, darting forward with every ounce of bravery she could muster. But terror clawed at the edges of reason. What awaited them ahead? Would they uncover the truth or join the shadows in a fate they could not escape? Just as hope began to dim, a flash of light flickered in the distance, a beacon through the darkness. Mommy, look! Max shouted, pointing. But as they rushed forward, a haunting laughter rippled through the air, vowing they were never truly alone. What awaited them beyond the light, and were they truly ready to face the terrors lurking within? Claire raced toward the light, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. The laughter echoed behind them, chilling and distant, curling around her like a vine, creeping into the spaces where fear resided. The shadows twisted, darker and more flexible, jostling against the moon's glow. They were frustrated. The Johnsons, once towering figures of malice, had embraced the darkness wholeheartedly, stretching their arms in mock invitations toward the approaching trio. Mommy, please! Lily whimpered, glancing back, her small body trembling. Don't look. Just keep running. Claire urged, tightening her grip on their hands. But her own resolve was fraying fast. The light ahead flickered more erratically, almost like a heartbeat in sync with her racing pulse. Was it an illusion? A mirage conjured by the forest? As they pushed into the clearing, a powerful wind rushed past, snatching at their clothes and hair. Claire felt a cold hand of dread clawing at her spine. The brightness expanded, illuminating a weathered stone circle that sat at the center of the glade. It was adorned with strange markings that pulsed like a wounded heart, casting dark patterns into the surrounding shadows. What is this place? Max asked, awe sprinkled with fear. I don't know, Claire whispered, her stomach sinking as she stepped closer. The light seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. But was it safe? Or a lure, set by the whispers? Just as Claire began to sense a sliver of hope, maybe this was a refuge after all, a sudden, harsh rustle shattered the tranquility. The Johnsons burst into the clearing, faces twisted in rage, their chants boiling over like a pot left too long on the stove. Their voices melted together, forming a monstrous wave that crashed against the stone circle. Return to us! The chorus cried, their eyes wide and wild. Get back! Claire shouted, her back pressed against the ancient stone. It felt warm against her skin, feeding her with a fleeting sense of safety. The children huddled closer, confusion and fear radiating from them. Please, no! Max cried, tears spilling as he looked around for an escape. Shut your eyes! Claire ordered, fear tautening her voice. She didn't want them to see what she was willing to do next. The whispers seeped into her thoughts, now familiar, piercing her resolve. Think of something, someone you love. The Johnsons wavered, their movements jagged, as if fighting against an unseen boundary. Claire's heart twisted. They were wrong, all wrong. Yet the glowing stone circle danced innocently amid the chaos. Protection or a prison? Lily whimpered, "Mommy, let us leave." But Claire hesitated. The forest seemed to pulsate around them, flourishing with a strange energy that teased the edges of her mind. What if? Then, a wail, high and shrill, erupted from the Johnsons' throats. It hurt Claire's ears, a sound of fury and despair intertwined, echoing through the trees. "No! Don't!" she screamed, as the air thickened, swirling with darkness and despair. In that devastating moment, the ground trembled, and a fissure split the earth open before her, a deep crack that threatened to swallow the stone circle whole. Was it a trap? The shadowed figures surged forward, wailing, tears streaming down their faces, anguish painting their features as if caught in an eternal scream. "Stay close," Claire commanded again, fear clawing deeper into her stomach. But deep down, a frantic thought blossomed. Was the light truly a beacon, or was it the dark's final tease? With her heart poised on the precipice of decision, Claire felt the earth give way beneath them. What lay beneath the surface that had held them captive? Would they fall victim to the shadows, or would they finally break free? As the ground buckled, both terror and hope collided in Claire's heart. In that breathless moment, she braced for the fall. Would they find safety in the unknown, or was the darkness waiting for them below? Claire felt her stomach lurch as the ground gaped open beneath her feet, swallowing the flickering light and the shadows that danced around it. Time warped, each second stretching out like a gnarled hand reaching for her, pulling her toward the edge. Panic surged through her, guiding her instincts in those fragmented moments that felt like an eternity. "Mommy, I don't want to fall." Max screamed, his voice cracking, piercing the panic that enveloped them. "I want to let you." She squeezed his hand harder, desperately holding on to the warmth of her children. They were the light she needed, the reason to keep fighting against the darkness encroaching around them. But even as she promised that, she felt the whispers wrapping around her thoughts again, slithering like serpents. "You can find peace, embrace it. No." Claire shook her head violently, trying to dislodge the haunting murmurs. With a sudden surge of energy, she steeled herself against the pull of the fissure. "We need to run. Now." Deeper into the clearing echoed the Johnsons' wails, reverberating around them. Their twisted faces, desperate and haunted, reflected the shadows of their torment. They were now caught in the storm of their own making, one that clawed at Claire's throat and filled her with icy dread. The children looked up at her, eyes wide with fear. "Mommy, please." Lily pleaded, her voice wavering like a wisp of smoke. Through her rising panic, Claire caught sight of a jagged rock formation beyond the crack, a precarious path that seemed to rise, almost beckoning, yet ominous in its invitation. "This way!" she yelled, forcing her legs to sprint toward it, the weight of despair pushing against her back. As they ran, the earth continued to tremble. The unearthed crack spread like an angry mouth, revealing dark, swirling mist below. Claire looked back, only briefly, to see the Johnsons still advancing, now twisted shadows devoid of any humanity. What remained of their faces was contorted into grotesque expressions of anguish, drawn toward the stone circle's light. "Faster!" she urged, feeling her pulse race, matching the pounding of her heart. Every step was a desperate leap into the unknown, the void of the darkness, and their once next-door neighbors now turned nightmares. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook violently. A loud roar erupted from below, like a beast awakening from a long sleep. The crack began to widen further, and instinct kicked in, urging Claire forward. Then, without warning, a sharp cry pierced through the chaos, one that rippled with a warning tinged with regret. "Leave us!" it screamed, and an invisible force threw Claire and the children toward the rocks. They stumbled, barely catching themselves, Claire's grip slipping as Max lost his footing. "Max!" Claire screeched, seeing him fall back toward the opening as if the darkness was reaching to reclaim what had escaped. In that heartbeat moment, everything stopped. Time froze. Max's terrified gaze was wide, and the darkness called to him, hungry and ravenous. No, no, no. I'm coming. Claire lunged, grasping desperately for his flailing arm, every inch of her willing the light to protect them against the consuming dark. It felt like the very air was thickening, trying to hold her back, to keep her from saving him. With a gut-wrenching yank, Claire seized Max's hand just in time, pulling him with a force born of desperation. The earth beneath let out a howl of fury, but they were thrust forward, away from the edge, colliding against the jagged rock. Breathing heavily, Claire glanced back. The Johnsons were still pushing against the shimmering barrier of the light surrounding the stone circle, their cries now mingled with deep, mournful wails. Would they be trapped here forever, just yearning for escape? What do we do now? Lily's voice trembled against the backdrop of despair. Claire's mind raced. They had to make it out. Yet something within the shadows shifted, a deeper darkness gathering, far beyond the Johnsons. Something larger was watching, waiting to strike. She could feel its dread just behind her. The darkness was far from finished. A slow, cold laugh echoed through the air, different from the Johnsons. More sinister. Run! Claire shouted again, knowing they couldn't linger in the face of evil. Yet uncertainty clawed at her mind. Was safety ahead, or a deeper trap lurking just beyond the rocks? With that chilling question hanging in the air, they took a step forward. What awaited them in this new darkness? And would they ever escape the grip of the shadows? Claire could feel the energy around her crackling, thick as fog, the kind that clawed at her skin, filled her lungs with dread. She turned to the children, their wide eyes illuminated by the weak glow of the stone circle. Stay close. Whatever happens, don't let go of my hand. They pressed forward together, inching toward the rock formation. Each footfall echoed like a drum in her chest, a reminder of the ticking clock behind them. The Johnsons' wails morphed into something more primal, more animalistic, each cry a warning that clawed at her adrenaline-fueled urge to flee. As they neared the rock, a shape loomed in the darkness, gliding almost effortlessly toward them, a shadow among shadows. Claire felt the hairs on the back of her neck rise, a sense of dread heavy and palpable. What is that? She whispered hoarsely, fear creeping into her voice. Lily clutched her mother's arm, her breath hitching. Can we go back? Please. No. Claire snapped, but the urgency faltered when she registered the terror in Lily's face. They hadn't even crossed the threshold, and already something was watching, something eldritch and lurking. The fear she felt churned in her stomach, a sickening knot that begged her to retreat, but there was no way back. The shadow stirred, and an unearthly growl reverberated through the air. Claire took another step, just as the creature revealed itself, a mass of darkness clothed in writhing shadows, eyes too many to count glimmered with malice. It had once been human, she thought, perhaps a person like them, but now it was trapped in an eternal state of hunger and despair. Max's grip tightened as he whimpered, "Mommy, please don't let it take us. I promise." Desperation mixed with her resolve. She felt bare before this entity, stripped of safety. We need to keep moving. They charged toward the jagged rocks, the creature shifting, swirling closer, a pulsating fog leaking out, hungry tendrils reaching toward them. But Claire spotted something, a faint glimmer just beyond the rocks. An exit. Freedom lay in that light, and she propelled them forward, heart thundering in her ears. As they climbed, the echo of the Johnsons transformed into shrieking laughter. It was warped and mocking, slithering into her mind. You can't get away. Join us. Claire shuddered. No. It wasn't over, far from it. The ground quaked beneath her feet again, fissures blossoming like spreading veins, angry and alive. Each tremor threatened to split apart the world around them and plunge them all into that yawning abyss. Claire's legs burned, but she pushed harder, fueled by instinct and raw fear. "Mommy, I can't," Max gasped, fear cracking his voice. "Just a little more." Claire urged, but she felt the shadow reach, brushing against her neck, cold breath seeping into her skin, reminding her it was still there. It slithered close, whispering words laced with despair, "Let go, it's not worth fighting, no." Claire shouted, shaking her head furiously. They would not succumb. The light was closer. She could see it shimmering now, a doorway framed by an otherworldly glow, promising escape. With a final heave, they launched themselves toward it, hope surging anew. But then, a scream split the air, chilling and sharp. Lily, suddenly taken by an unseen force, was yanked backwards, her small frame pulled away from Claire's grasp. "Lily!" Claire screamed, the world around her slowing to a halt. The darkness coiled towards her daughter, gleeful, greedy. Time halted as Claire grappled with the unimaginable, her heart pounding in her chest like a war drum, fighting every chaotic thought that surged forth. Max clung to her side, wide-eyed, horrified. "Mommy! Help her!" Terror gripped Claire, twisting inside. She could feel the darkness waiting, poised. Would she have to choose? Save her child, or save the other? "Lily!" Claire lunged, adrenaline pumping, soul screaming. But as the darkness enveloped her, a dreadful realization pulsed through the air like a steady current. There were no easy choices left here, and the shadows had only just begun to play. What would Claire sacrifice to save one? And what awaited them both once they crossed that threshold into the light? Claire's hand shot out, but the gap between her and Lily stretched impossibly wide. In that disorienting moment, her eyes locked onto her daughter's, mingled terror and disbelief reflecting back. "Mommy!" Lily's voice trembled, barely a whisper, caught somewhere between pleading and sheer panic. The boy's grip on her tightened as if he too could sense the gravity of the moment. The creature lurched forward, its shadows snaking out to clutch at the fabric of Lily's shirt. It seemed to feast on the girl's fear, growing bolder with each terrified heartbeat. It was as if the darkness itself was alive, a sentient fog that relished in their despair. "Lily, hold on. I'm coming." With a raw cry, Claire charged forward, fueled by a desperate need to save her child. The light beyond the stones was an intangible promise now, a beacon each of them was straining to reach. But the darkness was a predator, closing in like a hungry beast. It wrapped around Claire's legs, slick and heavy, trying to drag her back into an inky oblivion. The shadows whispered, taunting her with visions of defeat. "Let her go, just give in, shut up." Claire barked, choking on her fear, pushing through the chill that gripped her heart. She could feel Lily's small body being pulled. The panic in her daughter's eyes spurred her on. "Stay with me, sweetheart. I'm almost there." Every step felt monumental, every effort a battle against the encroaching void. Claire felt the cold tendrils of darkness brush her torso, trying to squeeze around her ribs. "Mom!" Max cried out as though the shadows threatened him next, the pure terror in his voice urging Claire onward. She launched herself through the haze, momentum gaining with each ounce of will. And then she grasped Lily's wrist, fingers slipping just before finding a solid hold. With one mighty yank, she pulled her daughter back, the shadows shrieking in protest, but the creature was relentless. A low, rumbling growl vibrated the ground beneath them as it reeled, stretching out its haunted form, rows of eyes blazing with rage. Claire turned, frantically hauling Lily back toward the faint glow of hope. "Run!" she urged, not caring if her voice sounded strangled. Max stumbled next to them, feet unsteady as he attempted to keep pace. The laughter of the Johnsons intertwined with the growls of the shadow thing, a cacophony urging them to turn back. The path to the exit shimmered, still distant but clearly there. Each step toward salvation felt like a frayed thread in a tapestry unraveling. They raced through the darkness, heartbeats loud in their ears, fear mingled with raw desperation. As they neared the threshold, tendrils lashed out, desperate to claim them. One caught Claire around the ankle, jerking her down with horrifying force. "Mommy!" Lily screamed, but Claire's grip on her daughter remained solid. With one last scream of fury, Claire pulled, feeling the darkness ripping at her garments, tearing at her very essence. She trembled at the thought of losing everything she loved in this unholy expanse, then light exploded around them as they stumbled across the threshold, the ominous shadows snapping violently behind them. They fell, gasping on solid ground, free of the suffocating dark for a moment, but the sense of safety was ephemeral. Barely catching her breath, Claire's heart sank. The shadows still swirled at the edge of the portal, angry and infinite, still watching, still hungry. "Did we make it?" Max whispered, his innocence cracking like glass. Claire looked to Lily, who still trembled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Not yet," Claire murmured, dread pooling in her stomach. The threat lingered, an inevitable presence, and now they stood on the precipice of something much worse. Would they ever truly escape? With a sense of impending dread, Claire felt something change in the air, a shift that froze her blood. The darkness had not been vanquished. No, it was waiting and learning. What would it do next? And how long could they stay hidden from its reach? As Claire, Max, and Lily lay gasping on the solid ground, the shadows loomed like phantoms at the edge of their vision. Claire's heart thundered, heavy with the panic of what they'd just escaped. But breathing would only bring more fear. Had they truly left the horror behind, or had they merely placed a curtain between themselves and the lurking dread? "Mom, are we safe?" Lily whispered, voice trembling. Claire glanced at her daughter, so small and fragile, her face streaked with dirt but filled with resolve. "We'll be okay," Claire said, forcing words through a throat constricted with fear. But as they climbed to their feet, the shadows writhed, unwilling to relinquish their claim. The distance between them and the darkness felt fragile, like a thin strand of spider silk, ready to snap. Claire shielded her children with her body, eyes darting around the clearing, searching for any signs of escape. The air felt electric, charged with an uneasy anticipation. The stone circle glimmered, teasing Claire with the possibility of safety it had once promised. "We need to keep moving," Claire proclaimed, almost more to herself than to the children. She could feel the shadows lunging, hungry whispers tickling her ears, trying to sway her heart back into despair. "We can't stop here. Come on." Hand in hand, they stumbled forward. With every step, the shadows' laughter faded into a haunting echo, replaced by the rhythmic thumping of their hearts. But the feeling of being chased never left. The very ground shook with the memory of the terror they had narrowly escaped. Suddenly, from behind, an unearthly howl split the air, deep and menacing. The darkness surged, shuddering with violent intent and bitterness at having lost its prey. They had angered it, and that wrath would be satisfied. "Mommy, I don't want to go back." Max's little voice was threaded with despair, clinging desperately to Claire, sending tendrils of guilt slithering into her heart. "We won, she assured him, but doubt gnawed at her resolve. Claire pressed onward through the dense underbrush, branches clawing at them like sharp fingers pulling them back. "There has to be a way out," Claire chanted to herself, repeating it like a mantra. The shadows flared, giving chase, their presence imminent and nightmarish. Then, against the unforgiving darkness, a flicker of light appeared ahead. "Look!" Lily pointed, hope igniting in her eyes. It glimmered, faint but encouraging. "Come on!" Claire shouted, urgency fueling every ounce of energy. The trio dashed forward, the thundering echoes of the darkness urging them on, the promise of freedom dancing tantalizingly close. As they broke through the foliage, they stumbled into another clearing. This one, open and expansive, revealed a shimmering lake under the moonlight, a tranquil oasis in a world gone mad. The light felt solid, nourishing. "Is it safe here?" Max asked, scanning the horizon. "I don't know," Claire admitted, heart pounding as she watched the water ripple. It felt peaceful, yet she knew peace in Pine Ridge had been an illusion. "Maybe they can't come across the water," Lily suggested, glancing nervously at the dark silhouettes spilling out from the trees. Claire's mind raced. "It's worth finding out." They stepped closer to the edge, terror mingling with a flicker of hope. Claire turned to the shadows, raising her voice. "You can't touch us anymore." The words ran heavier than stones, but she fought against the fear. The Johnsons, their figures now grotesquely distorted, emerged at the tree lean, chanting. The very air vibrated with their eerie lullaby, an unholy hymn echoing off the water's surface. "Let it go," Claire shouted, her voice straining, echoing her resolve. "Let us go." The night air thickened, pressing against her skin. The shadows writhed, a sinister mist curling toward them, licking at the very edges of the moonlight. "Join us, Claire," they sang, and the smell of decay filled the air, like a twisted invitation. In that moment, Claire felt a wild surge of determination. "You can't have us." She grasped Max and Lily tightly. "We're not scared of you." And then something shifted. The ground trembled as Claire looked down at the lake, its surface rippling mysteriously before her. "Mommy, what is happening?" Max cried. "I don't know." Claire shouted back, but she felt the darkness retracting, the power of their voices swept away by the force of something monumental, building within her. Was it anger? Fear? Or maybe it was love, a fierce, protective love that surged like wildfire. With one deep breath, Claire yelled, "Go back to where you came from. Leave us in peace." The words echoed and intensified, ringing around them like a bell tolling. The shadows recoiled, howls morphing into cries of pain. The lake shimmered, reflecting the light in a dazzling display, amplifying the power in her voice. With a shattering crash, a wave rippled outward, and the darkness drew back, trembling at the edges of the water as if afraid to cross. "Now, run!" Claire yelled, pulling the kids toward the water's edge. They plunged in, the cool night air swirling around them, the shadows screaming in futility as the light consumed them. Together, they pressed forward, swimming toward the heart of the lake, feeling safe as the water cocooned them like a protective barrier. Claire propelled them with all her strength, the darkness swirling behind but unable to penetrate the shimmering magic surrounding them. As they reached the center, they gasped for air. "Is it over?" Max whispered. "I think so," Claire responded, her heart racing. With the shadows' voices fading into the night, Claire wrapped her arms around her children. They held tight to one another, realizing they were together, pulled from the brink of darkness and closer to the surface of something full of life. The shadows had retreated, but the memories would linger, engraved in their hearts as a reminder of the price they would always pay for peace. As dawn crept on the horizon, illuminating the lake in hues of gold, Claire finally felt a sense of serenity wash over her. "We're safe, for now," she whispered. But deep in her mind, she knew evil prowls, always awaiting an opportunity. They would always be vigilant. Understanding the fragility of safety, they made a silent promise to cherish this moment of peace, and to use their strength to run away from fear. And so, they swam to safety, leaving behind the shadows, holding on to one another as they stepped into the gentle light of hope. Now that you've journeyed with Claire, Max, and Lily through their harrowing ordeal, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let us know you're with us in this adventure. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what you think lies beyond the shadows, and how you would face that fear. Only true fans know how important it is to support the channel through these actions. Let us keep the thrill alive together.